starting back over, before we get into back to our other committees, we talk about the speed of technology. I'd like to call Michael May up real quick to give us a IT update on our mobile app. He done a little searching while we were on break. So.
Yes, sir. I contacted Nashville back at the IT nerdery, and got a little bit more information for you. I figured you'd call on me, so I was in there checking on it. So, as the last few years have been steadily increasing in the amount of individuals who are using internet/mobile. We can't determine between the two right now with the current real system vendor, but we're going to check on changing that in the future. But right now, we're right at about 138,000 for internet mobile, and about a little over 52,000 for check stations. So that goes to about 72.5%. Last year is about 65, and I think the year before, don't have those numbers, right about 50%. And before that, a little bit less. So we've been, steadily increasing on our mobile internet usage on Harvest. Yep. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'd also like to recognize Chairman Harold Cannon for another update.
I was just checking on the news during the break, and going back to an earlier subject about Noah Chamberlain, law enforcement officials have found evidence concerning the whereabouts of the missing toddler. The county sheriff would provide details saying that only that the evidence indicates Noah Chamberlain is still in the woods by his grandma's home. The officials have been more vocal, and I think this is equally important in countering what they say are rumors that Noah's family had something to do with his disappearance. One sheriff told reporters, don't start rumors. We need help, not hindrance. Many of the people involved in the search have been directed to do that. And that was part of their job that day that they were there. That said, I have no doubt those same people would have been there whether they've been directed to or not. That's the kind of state employees we have here, law enforcement and otherwise. And that's the kind of heart that the state employees have. But in particular ours, I just want to go back and compliment our folks. And this isn't about me saying it, it's about you all. The number of volunteers that showed up, what you went through in those kind of grounds. Frankly, I think that's why we love being up here, is being part of that family, because you all go above and beyond, and it's got to be hard beyond any imagination I can have, knowing that you're looking for a child in particular. Anybody, but particularly a child. So I want to commend our folks. I think that family still needs everybody's prayers in this, but thank you all for all that you do. And I'll say that for all the state employees that have been involved, Highway Patrol, county folks, and otherwise. We are blessed to have some remarkable people in this state watching over us. So again, thank you guys.
Thank you, Chairman Cannon. Moving on into our committees, the Biodiversity Multi-Use Committee, Ms. Connie King, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Blisso. I would like to recognize Bill Reeves, who is the Chief of the Biodiversity Division, and he's going to give us a review on amending Proclamation on endangered or threatened species.
So, to start off with, we are in the very early stages of amending the proclamation that you see up on the screen there. And we're planning on bringing this to you at the commission in June, but I wanted to give you some background information on this so we just didn't pop in here, spring it on you, and you're wondering, well, where did this come from? So, first of all, let's start off with the nomenclature of our proclamations, the 00-15. Which is the 15th proclamation of the year 2000. So we haven't amended this in 15 years. So, and we're a little behind schedule on this, but it is our plan to catch up this year. So my grand scheme here was to cut and paste directly from the Code of Tennessee, highlight the words that were important. Don't even try to read this because the screen size, I wasn't expecting us to have this screen size. I was expecting a little bigger. But it's in your notebooks, the whole presentation, and also the proclamation is in your notebook. So you can refer to that. It's these exact same words. So what I want to do, instead of trying to highlight the red words, is I just want to summarize what 70-804 does. It first directs the agency director to conduct investigations on non-game wildlife related to population status, distribution, habitat need, etc., determine management needs necessary to maintain or achieve sustainability of those wildlife populations. And then from that, the director is to propose regulations, propose management programs that ensure sustainability of non-game wildlife, and continue to conduct those investigations to evaluate the success of those management strategies. And Part B in there is directed at the commission, and it says the commission shall establish limitations to habitat alteration, take, possession, transportation, exportation, sale, etc. for non-game wildlife. And I've summarized that very briefly, but that's the gist of it. And paragraph C says, except as provided by the commission, it is unlawful for any person to take, attempt to take, export, sell, ship any non-game wildlife from the state of Tennessee. Now that kind of sets the groundwork. 104 kind of sets the groundwork. And then we go to 105, which is a little more readable, but not a whole lot. So summarizing that, paragraph A says, based on the process established in 70-8-104 and any other scientific information that's available from other states, the commission shall propose by regulation a list of species of wildlife indigenous to the state of Tennessee that are determined to be endangered or threatened in the state. Paragraph B says the commission shall conduct a review of this list every 2 years, and as you can see, we're a little behind schedule there, and to amend by additions and deletions as appropriate. Paragraph C says that the federal endangered species list should be considered in this process. So that's a summary of the mandate from the Tennessee law. And you may wonder, what does this list look like in 00-15, that proclamation? And I've summarized it by what we call taxa groups, or those major animal divisions. And you can see where the problem is in the water systems in the state of Tennessee have been so altered or so polluted or so degraded over the years that it's really most of the organisms, both in the state list and the federal list, are mussels and fish. It's not that the others aren't as endangered or as threatened, but the volume of this number of species is in the aquatic realm. And there's a good reason for this. There are two general areas in this country that have the highest and most expansive biodiversity, and we're dead in the middle of one of them, and the other one is in basically California, and with 40 million people in California, you can imagine that they've got their share of problems out there as well. But we are at the dead center of the Appalachian Mountain biodiversity area. So I wanted to cover today the why, which was the Code of Tennessee. The how is how we're going to approach this as an agency, and what we want to do is to bring in the best people in the state and even out of state if we have to review the current list and then go over that list first to add or delete species, there will be some deletions or species that move from one category down to the other because there has been some progress from 15 years. And then go over other species that need to be added to our list that take into the consideration where the code says that we need to pay attention to the federal endangered species list. And so then when we've done that and we've built justifications all the way through that for every species, we'll bring that entire package to you in June with our recommendations. So that's all I had to say about that. Ed prompted me a few minutes ago to bring you up to date on what we call the Blue Ribbon Panel. And this was started last year, I think, just last year. But through the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. This covers all states and all territories. But the funding in our end of the world, in the non-game endangered species, threatened species world, has always been a joke, basically. We've been tasked by Congress, both at the federal level and the state level, to either remove species from the federal list or to another source of funding, keep them off the federal list. And all total, we have right at $1 million a year to do that for all those species that you saw up on that list, plus the new additions to the federal list. And that comes out, I figured that out one time, and it came out to about $3,000 an animal. You don't get very far on $3,000 an animal for some of the problems that these animals face as far as recovery and recovery of those populations. So this Blue Ribbon Panel was established last year to go out and secure people, a bipartisan committee of people that are CEOs of major corporations that would help seek funding from Congress to really go out and do what our mandate is from Congress. And there are CEOs from oil companies on there, there are CEOs from outdoor recreation companies, other major corporations. The Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies brought them together for 3 or 4 meetings this past year to, first of all, acquaint them with the problem and then get their willingness to support this effort. In that same period, they surveyed all the states and asked us this one question: how much money would it take for you to feel like you could begin to remove species from the endangered species list? And that may seem like, if you really put your mind to it, that's a very difficult question to answer because you really don't know what it's going to take in any given species. But the sum total for all the states and territories was $1.8 billion. So then you start thinking, where are you going to get this from Congress? And the CEO of a major oil company that's on this Blue Ribbon Panel said, let's take it from the oil and gas taxes. I can't think of a better way for those taxes to be spent in this country than to remove endangered species from the list. And so that's what their plan is in this next session of Congress, is to propose that $1.8 billion, and this is just a drop in the bucket of the oil and gas taxes. This doesn't even show up on the radar screen. But to take that $1.8 billion and distribute it to the states to actually make progress on removing species from the endangered species list. Our cut would be $23 million a year, which would take, we could do stuff. I mean, we could really accomplish some things. The problem is going to be, where are we going to get the match money? Because it will require a match. I think it will be a 75-25, just like PR and DJ. But the association and the people with the Fish and Wildlife Service have taken this to OMB because they're really the ones that Congress listened to about, are they asking for too much, or is this reasonable, or do they need more? And OMB said, looks good to us, run with it. So But you know how it goes once you get into Congress, that's a different ballgame, and it may not pass the first year or the second year, but at some point in the near future, this will probably become real. So that's some good news to end on. Oh, yeah. The ringleader or ringleaders of this effort, one is a former governor from Nevada, and they wanted to get him on there because of the conservative nature of Nevada, and that if he was supporting this, everybody else ought to support it. The other is Johnny Morris, who owns Bass Pro Shops. And he is, I don't know, he's beyond passionate about this. He's basically been the primary cheerleader in this whole thing. So if you ever get a chance to thank him for leading this effort, please do.
Bill, is there any way we could use wetlands funds for our match?
We can use any source that is not federal money.
Okay,
So-
but it would have to be state funds for our match. I mean,
Right.
is part of the wetlands fund is federal though, isn't it?
But this
Stated.
takes, well, I was gonna say this takes care of Commissioner Cox's problem, but it really doesn't. This is so
No-
much money that
Nothing-
license
nothing
dollars can't
takes-
even be considered in this. There's not enough
Yeah.
license dollars to
Nothing
match
takes
this
care
money.
of Commissioner Cox's problem. Sandy's been trying for years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Reeves. Wait just a second. We have a question for you, Chief Reeves, please.
If you get this $23 million, what species right now would you work on if you picked out your top 3 species? Would us as a state work on to take off the endangered list if you were picking out yourself today?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, and I don't think I can give you a specific answer because some of these, let me give you an example of one of the species that's on the list, the Indiana bat.
Yes, sir. That's the one I want to talk about.
It has-
that affects my business just a
It
little bit.
has the problem of having what's called white nose syndrome, which is this fungus that gets on it in the wintertime in caves. We don't have a cure for that. Although if we banded together all the white nose states with a lot of this, some of this money, we could probably come up with a cure fairly quickly. But it will have to be something that treats them probably in the cave, and this causes a lot of cave people a lot of concern because there's so many other creatures in the cave. Are you affecting them? Are you playing one against the other and one wins and the others lose kind of thing? So where was I going with that? Oh, the thing that I really like to do with what little money I do have right now is to try to build projects that not only cover the species of concern, and maybe, hopefully, 4 or 5 at one time, but also just builds a better landscape for wildlife in general, so that it covers everything that this agency stands for, whether it's game species or non-game species. We're building better habitat across the landscape. So that's the approach I like to take and cover as many species on both sides of the fence as we possibly can.
That I know from personal experience that Indiana bat has caused a tremendous amount of impact on the construction industry between October 15th and April 15th. I can assure you of that.
Is there any other questions for Chief
I've got a
Reeves?
question. I wonder if the federal government and this Blue Ribbon Commission is so worried about endangered species, with the tight budgets in states, why don't they give us the money without a match? That may prevent action if we don't have a $5 million match to get the money.
And there is some money out there like that. Like we get a grant for white nose syndrome, speaking of Indiana bats. Has been $50,000, but because of the spread across the country now, with a certain pot of money, we're down to $26,000. So the more states that get it, this is backwards logic, I know, but this is the way it works. The more states that get white nose syndrome, the fewer money each state gets. So you're able to accomplish less and less every year. But that money doesn't require a match. But Congress has always felt like if you want this money, you got to be willing to come to the table with some money to match it. So that's the other side of the logic. And it would be great if we could get it for free, but I doubt that happens.
Any other questions from the commission? Any questions from the audience? Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.